Welcome back to the podcast. This is Matt Eagle from Eagle AI Agency. If you've been following along, we've been interviewing CEOs of companies, owners of businesses, started mainly in the professional services, went into staff and HR, now we're in coaching. Coaching's been a lot of fun. Coaching's been fun only because they care about people. So it's been a lot of cool stories, a lot of just inspirational stories of why people got started as coaches, but also what people are doing to help people and then how AI has impacted that. And so I have Ryan on the call. I think this is episode 48, so we've been through a lot of episodes. But Ryan, if you can't introduce your business, introduce mainly what you're doing, and then we'll go right into the questions.
Yeah, man, I just want to say thank you for having me today. That's great to be here. I'm Ryan Watts. I'm the sole proprietor of Ryan Watts Life Coaching, Ryan Watts Coaching. And really, we work with established, capable leaders who we help them remove internal negotiation so they can lead clearly without the weight of all that sort of inner dialogue.
Yeah, man, that's a deep one. The inner negotiation. I would be, because I'm a big Joe Dispenza fan, right?
Yes.
Where there's the subconscious mind is sometimes the body. The body stores trauma that has to be dealt with and healed with. And that is sometimes the conversation that you're fighting with, that conversation of the body versus the conversation of the mind.
Certainly.
And no secrets told, of course, but what are some approaches, or maybe what are some challenges people see as executives, right? That their internal conversations happening. How do you help untangle that? Because it can get super complicated, but you got to simplify it so people can actually utilize it. What is the one thing that you're seeing is some issues that people are dealing with?
I think there's just, in general, we're inundated with so much information,
Yeah.
and especially if you're a leader and executive, some of that stuff you're listening, because you care about people, or you're concerned about people and about how they're going to react to, a certain policy, or kind of replaying conversations over in your mind, instead of just sort of being really clear on where you're coming from and what that looks like and how you want to translate that. I think there's just a lot of processing energy that happens there, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing too. And I think if I had to sort of name it, I think a lot of executives out there, the belief is that if they are an executive, they should be able to manage that. They should be able to manage that extra energy, and there's something wrong with them if they don't. And that's not necessarily true. So there is sort of they have to get to a certain point where, wow, something's off. Something feels wrong because I should be able to take care of this. So I would say that's the most common thing. And
Yeah.
then the thing I'm really struck by is that they're executives, they're like you or I or anybody else. They're sort of they're working with the same sort of type of psychology, right? And
Yeah.
so we don't necessarily get into the therapy there, but what we do
Yeah.
is help identify that, and then create action to move forward.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really helped me going through the same type of journey of it's one, understanding what the ego does, like the protective it, because I think they have a negative connotation of what ego is. Like you can smell ego, see ego. No, ego is so hidden.
Yeah.
It's a protective mechanism, right? Just so what you said is, I'm an executive, so I should have an expectation. The expectation is what's going to create that protective mechanism, meaning every decision is going to go through that lens, right? So ego, I think, is a big one, and then being self-aware, right? I don't think people slow down enough to even hear the thoughts. I like playing the football field. You're in the stands watching the game play. It's slowing down enough to watch these thoughts actually go through, to be what thoughts are driving decisions daily. So what are you seeing when it comes to is it an ego thing for them? Is it just protective mechanism? Is it self insecurity? Maybe a lot of people like to say imposter syndrome. I think that's a big umbrella to many small things that could be an issue, right? Imposter syndrome can be caused by a million things. So what do you typically see with higher level leaders?
I think it's identifying what the meaning of all those things that you mentioned is, right?
Mm.
So what is if everybody has a little bit of a unique meaning on things. Like, for example, I mentioned, what does it mean about me as an executive, for example, if I can't handle this? So,
Mm.
and it probably has nothing to do with you being an executive, but there's, like I said, the way I've identified it is this internal negotiation or internal tension And I think what that language does is just help you identify it, right?
Yeah.
Help you be like, okay, this is what it is. And I think the way I sort of frame it is imposter syndrome's in that case,
Right.
right? So they're going to find out that I'm not good enough or something like that, and that is just one of the outcomes of this uh, lack of clarity, this sort of internal
Yeah.
negotiation.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I studied is the more you know, the knowledge of like how to react or like the knowledge of self-development, the more you can put it in practice, the better that you get, right? It's like the self-awareness, you have to become self-aware. And like you said, define it. Like you got to define the enemy just to even have a strategy against the enemy, right? Whether it's self-doubt, I mean, all of it creeps from the ego. I am fully convinced it creeps from the ego. Like I love the book Letting Go, like let it,
Yeah,
because like at the end of the day, when you let it go, you now give up that control, which is the ego, and you allow the flow of change and evolution to happen, which
yeah,
typically, if you're in a good positive state, it works out in your favor, right?
yeah.
Which is awesome. So, what's your typical demographic that you're working with, or type of companies, I guess, because it's obviously higher level leaders.
Yeah, I mean, the companies vary, but it's I work one on one with mid to high level leaders,
Mm.
as far as CEOs, and then I've worked with regional managers over my career here, and there is sort of it's funny because I see a lot of, I guess I never put words to it, but these people are sort of they're hard workers. They sort of know how to get the job done, and then they sort of hit a ceiling, and it's like because the old adage is what got you there isn't going to get you to the next step. They sort of get stuck there, right?
Yeah.
And it's just because the simplest way to say it is that negotiation they haven't addressed that.
It's very
Whatever
true.
that is, it could look a million
Yeah.
different ways. It's funny that you said ego. I think people think ego is like a negative thing, but one of the things we do in the work is that what is the ego doing to protect you? It's protecting you from something, right? And
Yeah.
acknowledging that, um, and then letting go isn't always just like okay. It's not always like throwing it away. It's just sort of detaching yourself from it. Like okay, it's
Okay.
there with me, but I'm not connected to it. Whatever it does, that's
Yeah.
sort of a magical place to be.
Yeah, I mean, what happens is the ego grows from attachments, people, things, and desires during fears. Like it attaches itself to something. So
Mm,
then you like mold your person around it. Whether it's like I've been after my first very good leadership company I worked with, just didn't match from like job that I wanted, but great leadership. I thought everybody was like that. Then I had very narcissistic leaders, right? And what happens is because people are narcissistic, they want to control your time, control you, control what's going on, control those things, right? And I got so attached to the boss that everything I did was flowing through a decision of that person.
yeah,
And so I became miserable. Like, what would this person think if I did this? What would that person think if I did
yeah,
that? Which then drove that protective mechanism. Everybody has an ego. Your ego is just a built-in subconscious machine that
yeah,
drives everyday decision for you, and it just builds those barriers and makes it like automatic,
yeah,
right? But once I was able to detach from first, like what I envision as success, right? Once I detached from that, then I detached from the people, and then detached from the things. It just freed me up. It just allowed. What happened? It took all my processing power that you were talking about. It
yeah,
takes so much energy just to be there, like processing like all these attachments. It's like creativity thinking, where I became like uber productive, uber creative, problem solver guy, like all those things, right? And
yeah.
people are like, "How did you get there?" And it's because like I stopped using energy to protect myself and started
Yeah.
using energy, understanding that I'm going to go somewhere, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so I love that. So for your business, are you mainly just doing one-on-one consulting, or is it like a 16-week program you typically take people through, or how's that typically set up?
Yeah, it's typically I like to start with 12 weeks. 12 weeks is just in my
Yeah.
experience, it's where really major transformations start happening. If we do weekly one-on-one coaching sessions, 45 minutes for 12 weeks, after 12 weeks, there's something that they're just more committed to, right?
Yeah.
They sort of come in eager, just like anything. I think we have this experience. You come in, you're eager, and then it's sort of like, oh, this is difficult, and then it's like, oh, and then you're sort of gain some insights, and then after 12 weeks, now Has anybody ever coached with me for 12 weeks? No. They usually will end up continuing to coach with me for, years. I think the longest person's been with me like 2.5 years of
Wow.
solid coaching all the way through. And so there's a continuation process. But I think, especially again, with the world the way it is, having that space, that sort of container to grow your self awareness. You mentioned
Yeah.
self awareness. We don't stop. Same thing for me. I'm like, whoa, I haven't stopped in 2 weeks and just been like, where am I at right now? I mean, no, we
Yeah.
don't do that, And
Yeah.
so, uh, coaching can sometimes be that for people.
Yeah. I think once they see the result and they see their life changing, they
Mhm.
get addicted to it. But then they realize what happens. What I've seen is you get excited and you stop doing all the things that got you excited, and you go back into that dump again. And then you got to do all the things because like it's a practice to be self-aware. It's a practice to let go. It's a practice to like do all these things. And I always love the latent effect where your life is a reflection of the last 6 weeks that you've had. So like that terrible moment you had was because you weren't practicing for 6 weeks. So it wasn't the day or the sum of the day that's causing your pain here. It's because of the last 6 weeks of unpracticed professional development. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's why I think the 12 weeks it sounds like that's how it works, right? They're excited, they're eager, and then I'm sure you see it after that 12 weeks, they kind of go back into that hole a little bit. And I
Mhm.
guess it's from triggers. Maybe you can give me some insight on that, but maybe it's a trigger that sets them back. Like maybe it's like something came in and it really stressed them out, so everything kind of reverted back. I think Joe Dispenza talks about your body's going to fight for its old self,
Yeah.
right? So then you might revert back and you don't realize it, and that's something you have. It's like almost like I think he says 12 weeks, which is
Right.
actually crazy. Like 12 weeks, your body like says no, 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 that's not who we are, and it tries to like pull it back in a major way, like whether it's a dream or like a situation or a trigger, and then like all this stuff is fluff, and then people give up, right? So for you, like what typically sets people back after that 12 weeks of like personal growth?
It could be anything. And I had this experience where you just realize, like you said, your body's fighting for its old way of being, right? Have you ever done the best example I have of this is, have you ever done an ice bath?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I just did, I used to do ice baths all the time. I would sit in there, and it's crazy the things that your mind would think. Like,
Hmm.
and the things that you actually are considering buying into. So I'm sitting there being like, uh, okay, yeah, I want to get out of here. You know what? I could get a blood clot. And I'm like, wait a second, what? Get a what? I
Right.
don't know where that came
Doubt,
from.
fears, yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
it kept throwing up silly stuff like this. And then finally I had to just laugh because what the idea that came up next was, and it's funny because it was like I wasn't thinking this. It was like, what if you get a Charlie horse or a cramp in your leg while you're driving and you press down on the gas really hard? I'm like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking because your body's trying, like, no, 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 we're getting out of this. And I
Yeah.
think it's the same thing with us. We just get talked into this, I don't want to use the word crazy lightly, right? But we just
But it
get
is.
talked
It's
into this,
100% crazy.
this idea of, oh no, we got to go back to the old way. And it's like,
Yeah. It's like your body was in control for so long. Like your mind, you have your mind, you have your body. Your body's your second mind, right? Your body has been in control for so long, and you didn't realize it. And when you put it in uncomfortable positions and then listen to what it says,
yeah,
you're like, none of this is real. But it's what drives your decisions every day.
exactly.
And I think 90% of people are living like unconsciously, just like body decision, body decision, body decision, no actual conscious decisions being made, right?
Mhm.
It's harder to be on this other side.
Yeah.
It's, it's funner, it's more exciting, things happen faster, like all this stuff happens, but it's harder to be conscious of your thoughts daily, right?
Mhm.
Which is like probably the most easiest way to become self-aware, right?
Yeah.
Whether you bring a biblical sense into it, you bring in a professional sense into it, it both works, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So to revert into business, because that's what my audience typically listens for. Um, so for you, when you first started your business, so what was your professional background before getting started, and how did you start your business?
I was in restaurant corporate management, and I sort of was thrust into this, and I became obsessed with like leadership Okay, so I read every John Maxwell book, good to great. I mean, you know, I probably had 1,000 books, and I had all these frameworks, and I'd go, and every month I sort of had and I'm like, what am I doing? And sometimes I'd get disillusioned and spend a few months not really, and then I get inspired again. And when I got into coaching, probably around 39, 40, so that was 5 or 6 years ago, I started realizing that, oh wow, it's not necessarily the framework. I mean, frameworks are important. That's not what the important thing was for me. It was sort of removing this tension, right? So being able to, you know, man, I had, you know, 150 people that worked under me. It was a lot. It was overwhelming, and sometimes like those thoughts that come up, you'd start believing those things, and I'd act impulsively or angrily or make a decision based on, you know, my mind making a comment that was sort of almost like that cramp. You're going to get a cramp while you're driving. What? You know? And I'm like, whoa, it was like crazy. And I
Yeah.
started realizing, like you said, I was sort of on autopilot. I was just like, this is just what I do. And it, it was a point of interest for me until I got this feedback that basically several times I've gotten this feedback. It was like, hey, people, they think you don't care. And I'm like, well, I'm so upset because I do care, but that didn't come across that way. And
Yeah.
so, as far as leadership, something I had to, you also talked about attachment, right? I had to sort of disattach myself from that. So, this is almost a way to sort of remove this internal tension and become aligned. So, you just feel, you know,
What you feel like you called for. Yeah.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
you just feel like you know what the right thing to do is. You know, that's another
Mhm.
thing. It's like a lot of times I'll have coaching sessions where people will come in and they'll say, you know, this is what's going on. I was like, well, it sounds like you know what you need to do. So, and they're like, oh, and like literally, I've had a coaching session. It's like 10 minutes before, and it's like, oh yeah, you're right. That's it. And we've all been there before, right? It's just then we'll talk about what is it that stopped you there, because
Yeah.
that's what needs to be addressed. Because you
Mhm.
know the job, you know how to lead, but there's something that's causing the gears to get grinding.
Yeah, absolutely. People always ask me, how do I follow my calling? You got to detach from everything to even know what your calling is. There's just so much junk in your brain,
Oh
so
yeah.
much childhood, attachment and programming to, what you listen to every single day, to the fears that you buy into, right? That just clutter your mind to where you know what you want, like everybody does. That's what's funny enough is I was in this position a year ago, like sitting in the car, completely just lost. Just like I'm good at what I do. I hate my job. Do not like the company I'm working with. And it was just like, okay, how do I fix this? And I just went down the Joe Dispenza, like all the Tony Robbins. I've been listening to John C. Maxwell probably for 6 years at that point. So I understood leadership. I understand self development. But it was the second part of like being able to heal trauma or be able to be self aware that changed everything.
Yeah.
And then things just started opening up and it just became amazing. So just like you said, so I 100% agree. If anybody's listening and wants to work with Ryan, that's 100% true. Like what he's talking about is detaching, going into it, right? But so when you started your business, did you start with referrals? Like I'm guessing you started with referrals, and then how do you pipeline today? Like how does that look?
That's a funny story. Is that actually right now I missed the referral boat, but
Yeah.
I really started with very clumsy sort of organic content marketing, right?
Yeah.
And it took a lot of time. I think that from a marketing lens, this is something I see out there everywhere. Is like there's all kinds of great marketing stuff out there. The most powerful marketing guidance I've ever gotten was, "Who's your ICP?
Hmm.
Who is it?" And then, no, that's not specific enough. Get more specific, right? And
Yeah.
just be able to reflect out there who it is, because you know if for example there's coaching and there's a picture of me, hey, get some coaching, no one's ever gonna click that link. And it's like, hey, are you a capable executive who's getting results, but something feels off, and you're spending a lot of time processing and thinking about, well, that's not the way it should be. Let's talk for,
Mhm.
you know, somebody always responds to that. And
Yeah.
so there has been that's been the biggest thing for me is, who is it? Talk to that person.
Yeah, I think that's Yeah, in organic, I think people sleep on it. I was watching a podcast. I can't remember his name. I keep bringing it up. I probably need to go back and listen to him. He's a billionaire today. He's a business consultant, like guru. He coaches everybody. He says everybody wants to do ads and marketing. Everybody wants to just get their stuff out there as quick as possible. He said what people are sleeping on is organic, targeted content. That's it, right? You don't need a marketing agency unless you want to scale and you have the revenue for it and you can fit it in. And you want to scale 60K in 1 month, but you have the ICP dialed in, you have your organic dialed in, everything's dialed in. Then yeah, ads make sense. But people, what they do is they get started, they throw an ad out there, and they spend $150 that month, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just so interesting how people will go that direction versus just start with organic. I'm a huge believer in it. That's typically what I do with AI is I teach people. The one thing about organic though is a lot of people need they don't have enough time to be consistent with it. Does that make sense? So they make a video, they post it once a week, right? But if you want Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn growth, it needs to be daily, right? And so people get burnt out doing it daily. And that's what I've been able to show people with AI is being able to build content and then distribute it weekly at a very low cost. So your ICP's dialed, you're connected. Now you just get it dispersed, scheduled, dispersed, clipped, all those things so that your organic capability goes up, right? Sometimes what organic only works if you're consistent at it,
Yeah.
right? It never works if you're spotty with it, right? Mm-hmm. So talking about AI, now that we're kind of coming up on the 21-minute mark, we typically do 25 minutes. With AI, what have you seen as a major impact that AI has on your clients, on you, the industry? Like, what have you been seeing so far?
I think the biggest thing is that it's just such a powerful tool to help us think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an AI optimist. I want to say that out here. You know, I think there's certainly dangers with it. It can also help you not think. But I've used it as a tool to help me think. What is it that I'm at a deeper level? What is it that I'm doing? And my clients will share with me, yeah, I got Chat GPT or Claude, and I sort of explored this a little bit with them, and that is, I think that's powerful. But I think coaching brings when you have the human to human connection, that's powerful for a bunch of different ways. Even if it's just mediated by a screen here. But it helps people become honest about what they're thinking, right?
Yeah.
Honest about what they believe. Because there's just some kind of, we know if we're lying or there's something about that connection that causes us to be more honest.
Yeah. I don't think AI will ever eliminate the human component of business.
Yeah.
I think that's still going to be a leading cause of why people get part of your business or have impact or get the results they're looking for, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think it's going to enhance the human experience, right? When it comes to small tasks, ongoing tasks, redundancies that are just wasting your time, giving you a headache. A lot of people start a business and they want freedom, but it becomes a trap, right? Yeah. It's the trap that they get into. And AI can just make it more of a freedom thing. And now you can just do what you really want to do, which is talk to the person who's excited about the, whatever you're doing, object thing or whatever. But what's going to happen though, is like you said, if people don't know how to think, be creative, solve problem, and they're not learning AI today, they're going to be labeled as redundant. Yeah. And that's what AI does. It gets rid of redundancies. Don't become redundant, right? So I appreciate you jumping on. This is such a phenomenal podcast. Obviously, that's my button. It's personal and professional development. So whatever you're doing is what I love. And I think what you're doing is phenomenal. How can people find you? How can people get a hold of you if they're excited about it? Or what's the best way to contact you?
Best way is my website, ryanwattscoaching.com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Ryan Watts Life and Leadership Coaching. But the website's usually the best way.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate your insight.